just get started. Several years ago, been a while, I shared with you a rather light-hearted series about one of the greatest sci-fi TV shows ever, called The X-Files. But after enduring almost 2 years now of COVID, some of the things that I said then are actually coming back and starting to haunt me. Think about them almost every day. 3 phrases the X-Files made popular. First one we're going to talk about today is trust no one. Man, a tremendous message in the middle of the COVID crisis. The truth is out there is another one, and I want to believe is the third one we're going to discuss. Because one thing I've learned in 21 months of COVID is literally trust no one. What should have been a health crisis that we all came together and fought together became horrible political. Media contradicts media. People are polarized to the very ends of society. Be honest, seriously, don't know who to believe. And if you blindly believe anybody over someone else, probably smart, because it's trust. It seems everybody has an agenda. Everybody has a spin on things. And every day, for at least the past 2 or 3 months, I find myself becoming more and more like Fox Mulder, who said trust. Now, I know some of you are not familiar with X-Files, some of this short history. This old TV show, Fox Mulder is an FBI agent, and his job is to track down the weird stuff. All right? I mean, he has to look after UFOs and Bigfoot and vampires and space aliens and all sorts of cool stuff. But along the way, he's constantly getting in trouble with somebody. He's finding government conspiracies, cover-ups, and everybody, it seems, is out to get him. That phrase, trust no one. It literally defined a generation. But you know the freaky thing is? It's coming back. It is again defining this generation. Because see, one of the shows way back when had to do with a worldwide pandemic, a government conspiracy and cover-up, riots in the street, and even a debate, violent debate for vaccine. And it's on the intertube. That's terrible. It's on YouTube. You can actually watch these old shows again because they are freaking people out now. How much they were. So I got to tell you, between now and when I preached that sermon a long time ago, I changed my mind. I'm going to vote with Fox Mulder. Trust. Now, here's the problem. After becoming so cynical that I am of the culture and politics and media, I run a real good chance of becoming cynical of all the people. And it's at that point that I really need to listen to somebody called Jesus, even in the middle of the COVID crisis. Read with me and see what Jesus said. You've heard the law that says, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. And that way you'll be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. If you love only those who love you, what reward is that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you're kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone? Even pagans do that. you're to be perfect, even as your Father. Wow, let's unpack that. He starts out with that old standard. It's the standard of the Old Testament. There really is a verse back in the Old Testament that says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, that's the minimum. Hate your enemies if you want to, but love your neighbor. You know, the people that are closest to you, the people you live with, the people you like, the people who are like you. Do as good for them as you would do for yourself. They turn out to be your enemy, fine, have nothing to do with it. Careful. Catch yourself. Problem is, I know a lot of people who still live like that. And I hope all of us understand that's the Old Testament standard. That was done away with when Jesus went to the cross. In fact, Jesus takes that old standard and does something really freaky. Look at the new standard. The new standard is love your neighbors, plural. Love even your enemy. Now there's some smart mouth in the crowd listening to Jesus. And Jesus is teaching about loving your neighbor. And he just pops off. He says, well, who is my neighbor? Jesus answered that question by what we call a parable, a story. And so the story is this guy is going along this deserted road. And a bunch of robbers come out and beat him, take everything he has. And he's left there, lying in the ditch, bloody. Along comes a priest. And then along comes a Levite. And these were religious people of the first century. And they just walk by on the other side. They don't get involved. And then the Samaritan. Now, a Samaritan is a different race than a Jew. And there was an intense hatred between Samaritans and Jews, Jews and Samaritans. But this one was different. This one stopped by, did a little bit of first aid, bandaged him up, and took him to the local Holiday Inn. And Jesus says, which one of those three was really the neighbor? And he picks him up. Not only does he enlarge what it means to have a neighbor, he now commands me to love him. I mean, wow, can you believe that? Just when I was getting used to the idea of loving the people who love me, Jesus picks it up and he says, oh, I actually want you to love the people who don't. Pretty clear there. If you love only the people who love you, well, what's the big deal? Corrupt tax collectors do that. And if you only like people and greet people who are just like you and agree with you on everything, what's the big deal? Pagans do that all the time. He says, you know, Christians, your love's got to be a little bit different. So now, we kind of ask the question, well, what are you talking about? How is the world's idea of love different than what Jesus is suggesting? Now, here's the fact. And I hate to admit it, and maybe you will, maybe you won't. But most of us got our idea about love from a romance novel or a movie. And you know what the problem with that is? Well, I wanted to be current today, you know. I didn't want to mention the movies that I liked. So I went to the inner tube and I searched for what is the most profound romantic movie of the past couple years. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get Casablanca, which is a fantastic movie. Some of you have no clue what I'm talking about. Others of you there were still alive when they filmed it. But in the past 5 years, do you know what one of the absolutely most highest rated movies is? Romantic movies. Love movies. The movie about a woman who falls in love with a fish. I'm not kidding. You know the old joke. I always have to say that so the women don't beat me. Some of you ladies thought you were Snow White and that you were going to marry Prince Charming. And you woke up one day and discovered that all you got was Grumpy. That's right. And I have some advice for anyone who is not married today. If you're not married, but if you're female, not every frog you kiss is going to turn into a charming prince. What is the world's idea? We talked about it a little bit. The world says love is just emotion. It's a feeling. It's a quiver in my liver. It's biological. It's evolutionary. It's some vestige in us mammals that helps us, it's some combination of neurons firing in our brain, but it's just that feeling. And then the other part of what the world sees love as is an action. Control. I mean, look how we even talk about love. Oh, my head is spinning. I'm all giddy. I'm weak in the knees. Honestly, it sounds like you're getting ready to puke. God's love. You know what my favorite is? I just couldn't. I fell in love. It's like you're walking out in the woods and there's a big hole and you just walk into it. I guess I'm making fun of it a little bit, but I am suggesting that the world's idea of love is not very high and lofty. Now here's God's idea of love, and it's going to be something different. You may not have even heard about this. God's love, number one, is the choice. God commanded it. A new command I give you. Not optional. Love one another as I've loved you, so you must love one another. By this the world will know you're my disciples, if you love one another. Jesus never commanded us to feel warm and fuzzy and mushy about the people around us. He did command us to do the right thing for the people around us. You know, you cannot command an emotion. You cannot command a feeling. How did that work with you 2-year-old? I command you to stop crying. How did that work with their diet? I command you to eat broccoli. I command you to like spinach. It didn't work. But God can command action. Because what's the choice? You decide you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. He says, I want you to make a choice to love me. When you get up in the morning, I not just want you to decide what you're going to wear for the day. I want you to make the decision that you will love me today. Now the second thing, and it's totally different from the world because God says love's an action. It's not necessarily something we feel, but it is something we do. John writes, let's stop just saying we love people. Let's really love them and show it by our actions. Now, mandatory Greek lesson. Every sermon has to have it. There are 4 words for love in the Bible, in the Greek word. First is storge. That's the kind of love you would feel for your mama, or a brother might feel for his sister. It's just this kind of affection. The second word is eros. So we get our word erotic. And that's sexual. Everything you understand would be in that word. The third word is philia, which just means a deep, deep friendship with somebody. Like Philadelphia. But the final word is agape. And agape is a word that is used in the Bible. These other words really don't come in that much. But agape's there on every page. In fact, anytime you see the word love, it's agape. Agape is you doing the very best for the people. It don't always mean doing what they want, because sometimes the very best might be just the opposite. But it means that you put their interests above yours. And based on my experience in life, most of us have a problem with sloppy. We just haven't got that. Love's unconditional. Love has no strings attached. You're not giving people what they deserve. You give them what they need. I mean, if God gave us what we deserved, we wouldn't even be in here. You know, He would have torched us all, sent us all. But God has given us what we need. That's love. That's why you can actually love people and not like them at the same time. You can love people and not agree with them at all of what they're doing. God's not commanding you to feel warm and fluffy to all the people around you. And that's a mistake we make in church. Warm and fluffy is fun, but it's not what God's expecting. God is expecting us to do the right. Now, I said all of that to come back and say, so what? What's the point? What's the point of what I'm saying? And I got three of them I want to share with you. Number one, real love, the kind we're talking about, God love. That's the sign that defines whether you're a believer or not. John writes, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God. Another place he says, we know we pass from death to life because we love each other. And anyone who does not love remains. People ask, how can I really know I'm saved? Well, the simple answer is, how's your love life? How is your ability to love and accept the people around you? Not who are just like you, but all people. Real love is a proof you've been saved. Real love, this ability, is proof that you pass from death to life, says John, from darkness to light. Love is the bottom line. Love is absolutely essential. You cannot downplay its importance. It's like making a cake. You can make a cake and forget the eggs, or forget the oil, or forget the butter, or forget the sugar. And you're going to get something. It's not going to taste like much, but it'll still be good. But if you miss the flour, you don't get anything. And that's the way it is with believers in churches. There's a lot of things we don't get right. There's a lot of areas where we're imperfect. The way we live and the way we treat each other. But we cannot live without love. Because it is that essential holds us. That's point number one. You want to know if you're really honestly saved and going to heaven? Check out. Number two, very quick. This kind of love, real love, supports and cares for other people. Serve one another in love, Paul writes. John again says, whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they've seen, they cannot love God whom they've not seen. He's given us this command. Anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. Because real love is a choice, and because real love is an action, real love cannot help but do the best thing for the people, regardless of who they are. What side of the track they come from, or what their story is. Number three. The one this morning I think is probably the biggest. Real love accepts and encourages people who need forgiveness. Accept the one whose faith is weak without quarreling over matters. Accept one another just as Christ accepted you in order to bring praise. A lot of folks get uncomfortable when we talk about love to this degree because their response is, well, isn't the truth important? Don't we have to stand up for the truth? Isn't the truth critical to the church? And my answer would be yes. Absolutely. I totally agree. But if we don't speak the truth in love, they will never hear the truth. People have to feel and experience the love before their heart comes to the point where they will obey the truth. And that's why we're called to love and encourage and to accept one another, especially those who still are in need. That's the true worth of the church, by the way, is how it accepts, loves, and encourages. Yeah, the people from the wrong side of the track are that group, are those who have fallen in the path and betrayed our trust. And even those from a different race or a background or a social status or economic position. Even those whose lifestyle is not only completely different from our lifestyle, but it's totally different from what God would like our lifestyle. That's radical, real. The church is designed to be a place where broken hearts can find mending, where bruised spirits can find healing, where we accept one another. At the same time, expect one another to grow. There's an old praise song, and the words go like this. If this is not a place where tears are understood, where will I go? If it's not a place where my spirit can take wings, then where shall I go? I don't need another place for trying to impress you with just how good and virtuous I am. I don't need another place for always being on top of things. Everybody knows that's a sham. I don't need another place for always wearing smiles, even when that's not the way I feel. I don't need another place to mouth the same old platitudes. Everybody knows that's not. So, if this is not a place where my questions can be asked, where shall I go to speak? And if this is not a place where tears are understood, where shall I go? Where shall I go? Now, I guarantee you that not everybody in this place has grown to a point to where they love. I cannot guarantee that you won't be hurt at some point by a thoughtless remark or some rude word. But I can guarantee if you hang around long enough, you will experience this kind of God's love. Jesus ended this morning by saying, be perfect like God is perfect. And it doesn't mean to score 100% on a Christian maturity. None of us ever will. In fact, in the Bible, the word perfect means literally grown up, mature. So here we are. We truly are facing a very difficult political, social, and a physical crisis. We really need to see some men and women who can discern the time, who have maturity, see the truth. Because I agree, right now in the middle of where we are, the X-Files has it right. Trust no one, or at least don't blindly trust everyone. But at the same time, if you're a follower of Jesus, don't let that cynicism that you are facing now part of life. Don't let that rob you of the standard that Jesus introduces. Don't let that rob you of who we are as a people of God and as a church. Doesn't mean we check our brains at the door. It doesn't mean we're Pollyanna. We're going to use the smarts God gave us as far as possible. We're going to do good. That's all. Stand and let's do share a final song.